I'm joined by technology expert Trevor Long. Trevor, welcome to the show again. Thank you for your time. How much of a concern is this data gathering and cancel culture within the big tech firms?
I think it's a massive concern, Cory. Good evening. I think the concern is that people really are blasé about it. We're blasé about the fact that we need Google. We want to be able to search for things on the internet. We don't really care how that information is being used. We love Facebook because it connects us to our friends and family, and we can read groups and information about things that we like, but it's creating a profile of us. And we really don't know to what extent those tentacles are being, pushed out into the corporate world. And you rightly mentioned things like just advertising and billboards in shopping centres. It's completely and utterly feasible that today big shopping centres are able to track individuals as they move through a shopping centre for their own information so they can improve the flow of the shopping centre, the way we get around, but also potentially is that being used to determine how often you spend there and where you go. And are shopkeepers able to use that information? It's kind of the thin edge of the wedge. And I think that's the problem Aussies and global citizens should have.
Yeah, I've had a growing concern for a bit of time now. I've rejected some of the loyalty cards that are so ubiquitous now because I don't want people identifying how much I'm spending on particular products, which may not be approved later on, if you know what I mean, if you're Dan Murphy's or one of the other botlos. But it gets bigger than that as well. I run a website, corybernardi.com.au, and Google Analytics are tracking everything on that website. It was only just today that I actually removed it because of the privacy concerns. There's so much that people are not aware of, and yet it has the potential to do us all real damage later on, doesn't it?
And I think the challenge is that there's always a good reason for someone in that data gathering. So, for example, Google Analytics, I mean, I couldn't run a website without that, knowing who my visitors are, what operating system they're using, what device. So I need that information to be able to create the right content and the right website. But are my visitors being over-tracked in that sense? So do we need to find solutions that are more user-friendly, user-facing? And I think, Cory, the point you made in your editorial about government surveillance versus private and big business is spot on. We would be marching in the streets if governments were even beginning to contemplate the kind of things that big tech is able to do, let alone are doing with us. And I think that we need to take that approach. If we're so up in arms against a government doing it, why wouldn't we be against a big business? And, what safeguards are there for Aussie consumers? What are we doing to protect Australians and their data?
Yeah, and protect all of our privacy. I mean, if these firms, they have so much money now and so much power and influence, if they can cancel the democratically elected President of the United States from some of their platforms for spurious reasons, then they can target almost anyone in the world, I presume. But Trevor, there's always big changes in technology. What are your big predictions for technology in 2021?
Well, I think actually on this topic, you'll find that there will be a trend here. Apple last year started talking about giving us the knowledge and the ability to understand what's tracking us. So if you're using an Apple computer and Apple software, you'll actually get notifications of what websites are tracking you. So that's a positive thing on this front, but we're going to need a lot more of that from bigger companies and the data companies like Google and Facebook. But in reality, the trends for 2021 are very much 2020 expanded because of the pandemic continuing, because of the work from home phenomenon not going away. We're going to see more working from home, using our own personal computers. And that should be a concern for everyone when we talk about the things we've been talking about, because we need to be aware of these things so that we can make those judgments. If I'm using a computer handed to me by my workplace to do my work, are they able to see what I've been doing? Using private browsers, you'll find more software. So with the demise of Donald Trump on Twitter, we've seen a huge growth in the use of Signal and Telegram messaging apps. We're going to see a lot of software that is privacy targeted, and we need to be sure that they are actually private. So I think there'll be a lot of investigation into those apps and what people are planning to use over the year ahead.
Yeah, there's some big challenges. I started investigating those myself today, and there are analytic tools that are privacy protected and have opted out of some of the more onerous obligations, I think, that Google have imposed upon people. But
Cory, if it's
to be
free,
fair,
who's the product? That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
We're all going to ask ourselves.
Yep, exactly. And that's why it's worth paying a subscription to maintain your privacy. But I've got to be fair, I have been very critical of some of these Chinese apps because they're sharing data with the Communist Party. I don't think that's very fair. But is there any real difference between what Google and Twitter and Apple and Facebook are doing in selling their data or renting it out to other firms and anyone for whatever use they really want to use it for?
I genuinely don't think there is, Cory. I've been a strong supporter of Huawei because, frankly, I've seen no physical evidence of any of the things they've been accused of. Now, if stuff's happening behind the scenes and going to the government, how do we know that's not happening here with our businesses and our government? And we certainly know that happens with the NSA and other American organisations. So, you know, if we're going to be critical of the Chinese, we have to be critical of all those organisations globally. And I don't think that Facebook and Google are handing over our information willy-nilly to the government, but is handing it over to marketing executives and big business a worse thing? And I think a lot of people would think perhaps it is.
Yeah, it's some huge challenges, and I think I would expect that 2021 will see a legislative response about privacy concerns by certainly some of the more freedom-loving people in the Australian Parliament. That's what I hope to see anyway. Trevor Long, I really do appreciate your time, and thank you for that, your insights tonight.
Always a pleasure, mate.